Hey everyone, this is Ph33roX bringing you Leakfinder number 6. Today we'll be looking at some games at the $15 level. So first hand we raise 7 deuce off, that's fine. We c-bet the flop, which is good. There's plenty of value from overcards and gotchas. Turn is a queen. This is actually kind of interesting. Because I think we're presented with a good opportunity to turn our hand into a semi-bluff. There are not a ton of better hands that we fold by betting the turn, but I do think there's enough value in taking the pot right now against hands like King 5 here. And by triple barreling, I think we can make him fold a very high percentage of his flop check calling range. If we didn't have showdown value, this would be the most obvious bet in the world. Having showdown value here makes this a bit more tricky. So we bet and it works out. So we raise a limp with King 9 off, looks good. So we get called and go to the flop. This is a flop I think where a c-bet isn't going to work extremely often because limp calling ranges hit this board pretty well. We go for a c-bet of 50. I think that's okay if we're gonna put more pressure on scary turns and rivers. So we get called and the turn is a 7. We pick up more equity, but our opponent's range got stronger. I don't think we get many folds on the turn. There are many pair plus draw type hands now. So we really have to triple barrel if we're going to bet the turn. Now, when we try to decide whether we want to triple barrel this board, I think it's important to be aware of all possible rivers. So let's do that real quick. Let's go over them. I think an ace, a queen, or a jack would be pretty great to shove as a bluff. I'm not sure about 4x rivers. Those are kind of tricky. On a king, a 5 or a 10, we would be jamming for value. So overall we'll be jamming 23 rivers. If you count 4x, we will be shoving 27 rivers. So there are 45 cards left in the deck, so we'll be jamming over half the time if we bet the turn, and we'll be giving up on the other river cards. So yeah, given that we can be shoving river with decent frequency, I think going for a bet here is fine. We decide to bet 100. I think we shouldn't be betting more than 80 because we want to leave enough chips for a river jam to have a lot of fold equity, and betting 100 sets up pretty awkward stacks, as you can see. Unfortunately, this is one of the rivers where we need to give up, and he wins with 5 deuce. But like I said, on most rivers we are jamming and winning a very nice pot versus 5 deuce when he has to fold. So we shouldn't feel too bad about this. This is just another form of variance. I think that's a well played hand overall. Raise, c-bet, well played. Um, Jack 6 facing a 3x. I think we should be folding. I would call against the min raise, but I don't think we can profitably call in this case. And nothing to do on the flop. We limp 7-3. I think that's fine. Jack 9 can be either a raise or a limp. So you choose to flat pocket jacks. So I don't really get why. I think our options are between 3-bet shoving and 3-betting non-all-in. For obvious reasons. I mean, we're just losing out on too much value. So this is one example of a board where our hand becomes very marginal. So our opponent c-bets the flop. I think we have to check call. Once we get there on the turn, I think we should be leading out. We can sometimes get 2 bets out of 2 pair hands, where if we check the turn, it goes check a lot. The downside to betting is that we don't give him a chance to bluff. However, I don't expect this opponent to run a big bluff here on this board. It's just very rare for people to bet twice here with a hand like 8-4 off with no equity at all. So yeah, and he hasn't been aggressive at all so far. Obviously we're betting the river, and yeah, I think we might have lost a little bit of value here because I think he probably would have called a turn bet and a river bet if we didn't bet really big. Yeah, easy shove here with King Jack. I think I like 8 deuce suited here enough against his big blind tendencies to just go ahead and raise. C-betting the flop is fine. Check calling the flop is, I think, the only play. So we're obviously not happy facing a turn bet, but I think having a spade in our hand gives us that extra bit of equity, and we should call here. If I had the same hand without a spade, I would probably fold. So our opponent shows down Jack 6. I would note the half pot bet on the turn with second pair, and it would suggest that if we see a bigger sizing next time, it would represent a more polarized range. Looks good. Obviously c-betting this board. So this turn bet seems kind of thin to me. I'm worried that we get jammed on by a range of 8-7, 8-6, 5-4, 10-9. So I'm not happy bet calling here. On the other hand, bet folding this much equity in a spot where he could have a draw himself is pretty painful for us. I don't think betting is bad by any means, but I would rather check here. I like limp with 4-3 off, and this is a flop where we are going to win a lot. Nice. I think I would like to lead out here. I think he's got enough queen 3 and 9-6 in his range, and those are giving up often enough given how he's played so far that we should probably betting any two cards here. Against more stubborn opponents, you might opt to just check fold here. But yeah, I think we should be betting against him. Yeah, I would just check fold here. Jack 7 is a great hand to limp at this stack, so well played. Yeah, I like checking back here. So this is pretty interesting. I mean, we all know those spots where we know he's very likely to have a jack, given we've never seen him bet pot yet, and we've seen him bet smaller with bottom pair in the limped pot, both on the flop and on the turn. So this bet does seem to represent a more polarized range. Yeah, I mean, it's a pretty annoying spot because we do know he's gonna have a jack a lot here. It would be interesting to see how often he needs to fold to make a jam profitable. I know for most hyper turbo pros, jamming is the standard play here, but I really wonder how much fold equity we have. It would be interesting to calculate how much fold equity we need. So let me pause here and calculate this real quick. So I'm back, and I gave our opponent a calling range using PokerStove. As you can see, his calling range consists mostly from Jack-X hands. I did add a couple of 7x hands like King 7 and Queen 7 because I don't think we can rule out 7x hands completely, although given how we've seen him play, I didn't feel like it would be correct to put in a lot of 7x combos because I do think he would bet them smaller most of the time. I also added queens through aces, but only half combos of those hands to represent the times that he was trapping pre-flop. And I also added half the combos of 9-8 and 8-5 to represent the times where he decides to bet call it off with a draw. So I think overall this is a pretty reasonable bet calling range for this opponent. So now obviously we want to look at it, how much equity we have against this range. So as you can see here, we have 38% equity versus his calling range. So now we can use this number to calculate how much we lose every time we get called. I'm gonna do this real quick, so if you guys have questions, you can then leave them in the comments. So we take the size of the pot when we get called, which would be in this case 990, and we multiply it by our equity. So we get 376. This number represents our stack when we get called. So what we do now is we take our stack if we fold, which is 465, we reduce 376, and we get 89. So basically every time we get called here, we lose 89 chips on average. And every time that he folds, we win everything in the pot. So that would be 80 and 80, 160. So once we have those two numbers, we just need to plug them into a simple equation. You can see the equation right here. This is Tiger Algebra. This is a site that solves algebra equations for lazy people. So I have this equation bookmarked, so I can just plug numbers and click solve whenever I want. I can post this link later in the comments if you guys are interested. So let's start. So the first number is what we win when he folds. So let's put 160 in here. And the second number is what we lose when he calls. In this case, that would be 89. So we just click on solve, and this is the result. And in order to translate it to something more understandable, we'll call our buddy Windows calculator. So 89 divided by 249, and we get 35. So in order to break even here on a shove, we need to have 35% fold equity. Now, if you guys disagree with the calling range I assigned for Villian, you can just add a few percentages if you think he would be calling off with a tighter range, or subtract a few percentages if you think the opposite. By the way, the equation that I used is also useful for calculating how much fold equity you need for shoving river as a bluff. So let's say we're shoving 360 chips into a pot of 490 on the river. So every time that he folds, we win 490, which is everything in the pot, and every time he calls, we lose 360, which is the amount that we bet. So we click on solve, and again we're gonna translate this. So 36 divided by 85, and we can see that we need 42% fold equity to jam river as a bluff, given the size of the pot and the size of the bet. So going back to the hand, knowing that we need around 35% fold equity here, my gut feeling tells me that we're getting called here around 70% of the time, which is a bit too much, but I would guess that other players would estimate Villian's calling frequency here differently than I do. I think everyone will agree that we get called more often than not. It's just a question of whether we get called 60% of the time, which makes this a jam, or we get called 70% of the time, which would make this a fold. I tend to be more on the, I mean, yeah, I just give this opponent credit here, I guess. Anyway, I would be really interested to hear what you guys think about this particular situation, and if you have any questions about the math I did on this hand or in general, just post it in the comments. I enjoyed making this video for you guys. I hope you enjoyed it as well. And until next time, good luck at the tables. This is Ph33roX for HUSNG.com, signing off.